Hello and welcome to the Preparing for Success webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Creating Your Own Opportunities, Entrepreneurship and Innovation in Conversation with Dr. Calvin Sim. And I'm really delighted that we're joined today by Commonwealth alumnus Dr. Calvin Sim, who will be sharing his experiences as an entrepreneur and an innovator. Just to give a bit of an introduction to Dr. Sim, and then I will hand over to him to give a little bit more of an introduction to himself and also to welcome all of our attendees. Dr. Sim has navigated a winding career path from contributing to cutting-edge teams in semiconductors and consumer genetics. His journey took an unexpected turn into the world of HR, which I'm sure we're all really intrigued to find out a lot more about. He has since been passionate about developing HR software solutions and founded Freebo with his university mate to empower organisations to build and manage their flexible workforce. As an alumnus, he currently serves on the CSC's Alumni Advisory Panel, where he provides personal insight and expertise to contribute to the development of CSC activities. And this is one such activity that he has contributed to the development of, as well as also giving his time to be a speaker today. He's a 2002 Commonwealth Scholar from Singapore and completed a PhD in electrical and electronic engineering at Imperial College London. So, Dr. Sim, thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know if there's anything extra that you want to add to that introduction.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Kirsty. Thanks for having me here today. And also, good morning to all of you. Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned about, this being probably the final year for some of the master's students and all, I'm just trying to recall my journey. It's been quite a number of years ago that's my reality as well. So well, all the best to all of you doing that. But yeah, hopefully today I'll be able to share about what's next after that. So that's going to be useful for some of you.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much. And yes, as mentioned, we do have a really mixed audience of scholars from across the Commonwealth, but also we've got masters and PhD and BA scholars represented, studying quite a wide range of topics as well. So I think there are pathways from entrepreneurship and innovation in any subject area, but we've got a really nice mix of scholars joining us today. So it'll be really interesting if anyone here has thoughts about kind of their own entrepreneurial journey that they want to drop into the chat box that we could sort of highlight. Please do use this opportunity to do that. So I guess then to learn a little bit more about your journey as an entrepreneur, can you tell us a little bit more about your company Freebo and what it does, and also what is your role as a founder as well?
Yeah, so I mean the company is actually named after a very local phrase in Singapore. It's actually pronounced as Freebo, and what it means is to ask someone if they are actually available, if they are free. And what we do is to help companies and organizations to really manage their people in a flexible way. So we started about more than 10 years ago in 2013, looking at the current solutions, the current landscape for how businesses would be looking at having people manage the different work shifts. For instance, if you were to run a retail outlet on High Street, you might have a morning crew and a afternoon crew or evening crew, and a lot of times when we spoke to business owners about how they do that, the answers that came back was that we work through an Excel spreadsheet or a Google spreadsheet, or we do it on pen and paper, and that's when we realized that that's really something that does not scale very well with larger organizations, and so we saw that this is something that where it's a space that needs a solution. And I think with COVID, it was something that really amplified this need. I mean, it destroyed the myth that productive work can only be done in the office. It showed that essentially we can work remotely from home or wherever that that place might be. I mean, you might be calling in from your room or from wherever else. Even now as we have this chat, and so technology has enabled us to really be a lot more flexible, and so the company was set up to look at how organizations can do that in a more systematic way. So that means that you have policies that is aligned with your organization's strategic goals, and how can software ensure that everybody, not just people who need that flexibility, can uh, actually expect to have some level of equality in terms of the company's access to company's benefits and all, and in terms of their work environment. So if you were working for instance, 2 days a week rather than your colleague who's working 5 days a week, I guess the expectation would be that you would have a slightly different set of say leave benefits than your colleague who's working full time. And I think currently for smaller organizations, for organizations that have that do not have a clear policy, this might be a bit ad hoc, and you might find that there might be discontent where people are saying that, hey, my colleague is working less, but they're getting the same level of benefit, and so that's where we come in to try to ensure a level playing field for everyone, and this ensures that people could actually work in a flexible way confidently.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much for that introduction. And as you mentioned, kind of in there, that you identified a space that needed a solution. And it's one that's worked both for the organizations, the companies, but also what you've mentioned there about the level playing field for employees as well. You've kind of hit both of those sort of target audience and the people with that need. As a founder, when you were kind of coming up with this business model and this business approach, what were your ways of kind of identifying kind of this space that you needed to fill, and what the best ways were to fill it?
Yeah, I guess we started with a hunch that that this is not a space that has a good solution. And what we did was really to talk to lots of businesses, and find out from them how are they currently doing things. So I mean, the company name came from actually talking to a lot of managers on the shop floor, and realizing that their Monday routine would be to take out their diary with all the contact numbers of their teammates, and then actually go through that list. And then I mean, now you would WhatsApp, but 10 years ago, it was still commonplace to call people, and they would call the numbers and then ask, hey, Charlie, Kelvin, Freebo, which is are you free on this specific time? And that's how we got the name. And so the idea was that actually took up quite a lot of their time, their work day to actually fill those roles. And I think the other problem is that with flexible work, you find that people's life circumstances change from day to day, and so that need to then be able to react to someone not being able to turn up for that day in a way that you could respond in a timely way. It's really important, and so that's where software like what we have comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you sort of mentioned this, everything started on a hunch. And I really do wonder with entrepreneurship, how many people's entrepreneurial journeys just start with a hunch, start with a bit of a feeling that there might be something there. And it's wonderful to hear that that's something that 10 years ago you kind of pursued, and it's led to this wonderful kind of piece of work that you've developed as well. You mentioned people a lot. People are so central to the work that you do. And I know from kind of your bio as well, you talked about how you went on a winding career path and you sort of found a passion for people and their needs. How important has that been in terms of developing your business model, is having that kind of people-centered or people-caring approach?
Yeah, so okay, I mean, okay, maybe first just a small comment on that hunch part. I I think it's a bit I think that there must be a caveat to be said that you know, we get hunches a lot, so it's would be pretty dangerous to just go on a hunch. It's very important to validate and to test out you know, if there's truly a market for you know, whatever that you're thinking. So that's definitely true for us as well. We had a lot of mistakes along the way. In terms of people, I think, yeah, I think that's also one of the things that I've learned through my journey as an entrepreneur. That's we made a lot of mistakes, and I think a large part of those mistakes is in terms of how we deal with people as a team, team dynamics and all. And I think that's actually something that in my younger life I would not have placed highly. But I think as as I work through you know, different organizations and teams, I realized that you know, it might sound really cliched, but it's really true that uh people is what makes the difference between, you know, being able to achieve those goals and not. I mean, after all, we do need to work as a team, and you know, if the team's not working well together, then those whatever goals that the company has will not be achieved you know, in a successful way. So I think from that, I've come to realize that yeah. So I'll give an example. So in one of my earlier companies, we were running a genetic company, over-the-counter genetic company, where we would provide tests to consumers off the street, you know, and in 15 minutes we would be able to provide basically a recommendation on the kind of skincare product that would be suitable for you. And a lot of work was done around kind of like, you know, setting up the machine, the technology, how does it interface to the internet, to look up the database and all. But at the end of the day, the success of this actually hinges on actually the advisors in the retail shop floor. So you could have all of that tech set up and everything working, and yet if the team for that day is calling in sick, essentially there's no service. And that's something that I kind of like, you know, underestimated early on in my career. So with realizing that, I think it's something that I've learned to place much higher priority on now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I think kind of really highlighting the value of people, you know, all the different sort of stages of the development of something, but also you mentioned around kind of people will help make it successful at the end. You know, people will invest in other people rather than necessarily technology that they don't understand. It's the person selling it or the person that they're building an affinity with. And as you mentioned rightly, you know, from your side, working with your team to develop things, it's about the team dynamics and the trust and collaboration and how you sort of foster that. So I think they're really kind of great points that you've just highlighted there for all of our attendees on the call about really putting value where you will get the most out of it and where it's best deserved as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I guess kind of just to move around a little bit, I know you mentioned just there around kind of another company that you were part of and that's part of your kind of entrepreneurial journey. We know from the top of the call in your bio that you completed a PhD, which was not in entrepreneurship. And, you know, on the face of the PhD doesn't sound entrepreneurial. So how did you get into this? What made you become an entrepreneur, or did you accidentally fall into this as a career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually started my first company at the end of national service. I come from Singapore, and basically all the male citizens would need to serve in one way or other. So I served in the army as a medic, and I had to do slightly over 2 years. It's shorter nowadays, but at that point in time, I actually had a lot of spare time, and I use that time to learn how to work with relational databases, and towards the end of that stint in the army, basically I together with two other friends, we actually got to know a business owner who owned a chain of optical shops, and he said that he needed something that would manage all of his shops, to manage the prescriptions for the prescription eye lenses, for selling the glasses and the lenses and all of that. So this was I think in 1998. So that was before all this Web 2.0, and now we are at Web 3.0 and beyond. At that point in time, having just a database with a barcode scanner was something that was quite transformational, and we got our first sale doing that. And actually it was a bit of a struggle, thinking of whether or not to then continue to go to university. But I guess my dad put his foot down, and that led me to Imperial College, where I met my business partner in my current this company. So that's been great. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, thank you. And it's interesting that kind of this has been something kind of really part of, your development and your career, and that you then sort of went down the university route, but you've still come back to it. And in terms of that time as a PhD student, are there any kind of links between kind of what you studied to maybe the businesses that you have been part of or founded subsequently, or maybe even just your approach to things, your way of thinking about things? Has that had an impact on it?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I really appreciated the engineering degree that I had, in terms of the way of the structured way of thinking, where we break things down into blocks. I think that's really helped to kind of break down what's required in terms of the solution space, to parts which we could manage. It's really important to be able to talk the solution through as a team, and so when we're able to break that solution down into blocks, it essentially allows us to have a common language between teammates to discuss the solution. We could say that this block here that handles, for instance, in my case now, the payroll, and then we can then work out what that block comprises of, the tax portions of it and all. It's really very similar to how we think about, say, electronic circuits, where you can have, for a large complicated semiconductor, you would have different blocks that perform different functions. So you would have, say, the analog to digital converter, which takes the signal from an analog sensor and then converts it to a digital signal, and then there's further digital processing. So this block approach of thinking about things, I had found very, very helpful in terms of then working through the problems. It's really useful as well in terms of talking to people at different levels. So talking to my clients and customers, they might not actually have the time or the patience to understand the nitty-gritty details of how tax works and so we can talk at a more general level, and so this is down to at what block level do we need to communicate in, and so that's something that I thought was really helpful. I think the other thing that I found really helpful was to be able to look at the evidence, right? So as an engineer, basically, we are constantly trying to test hypotheses. So we would be saying, okay, this is what we think, and then you would need to work through a solution and see if we could validate the hypothesis. So I think that's something that I had helped a lot in terms of being able to manage our resources because you have finite amount of time, finite amount of money. So you want to ensure that you are able to say, okay, if this does not work, let's can this and try something else. That's really looking at the data and knowing whether or not this is a good decision to follow through with.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, so much more kind of guidance and sort of tips that are coming out there. You know, you've mentioned again the importance of people and that communication skill, but also sort of validating and testing your evidence. And you've also encouraged people as well to kind of talk to everybody at any level, because people see and understand information differently or use it differently as well. So again, some really interesting points that you shared there. Something else that you've kind of mentioned throughout the call is sort of changes in technology. And I also remember the days where you had to pick up the phone in order to be able to get anything done. We didn't have the technology that we have now. Thinking as an entrepreneur and the sort of changes that entrepreneurs are facing, technology is evidently one of those areas. But are there other things that you as an entrepreneur are kind of looking at in the next maybe sort of 3 to 5 years, thinking that change is going to impact what I do or how I think or how I'm able to be an entrepreneur? And what are those things and how are you perhaps preparing for those changes?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think it's a pretty scary time an exciting time as well. I think and this change that we're looking at has happened in the past a year or two with generational AI. I'm sure many of you would have heard this term thrown around a lot in recent months, and it's something that we are looking at as well. It's going to change how we work. I mean, currently now, we have realized that it's actually something that we could use to amplify our capabilities as a team. We encourage all our teammates to actually use it as a tool to get to the solution quicker. I think I'm also worried because with a lot of the capabilities of generation AI now, actually, we used to have to hire more junior engineers and interns who would do some of the work, and these days actually it's a lot faster and cheaper just to go to ChatGPT and ask to do that, and so the question is how do we build people up so that they could get the basic skills, and then they could with a good foundation in the basic skills develop higher level thinking skills on kind of like the strategy level and so how during the time that I was in my younger career, I had the time and space to do that. But I think with ChatGPT, the competition is not human. It's really just asking the generation AI to come up with a solution. So the difficulty would be how do we get to a point where you have juniors team members growing to understand and be able to contribute at a more advanced level. I think that's something that we at least I don't have a good solution to yet. It might be that it's really a different pathway that people now, at least younger people now, would go through than what I have gone through, say 20 years ago, to get to a point where you are able to think strategically and say, okay, this is I can apply this solution in a certain way and for a slightly different problem and yeah, so I think that's where we're at. We're looking at using a lot more generational AI, but then again, I think it's also a worry in terms of how do we grow people to get that foundation, the strong foundation, where they can then become better at whatever they're doing, whether it's an engineering subject matter or something else.
It's really interesting the kind of the points that you've raised there, and the sort of broader discussion that's being had around AI and artificial intelligence and the opportunities, but also the challenges and possible threats that it's bringing. And it's interesting to hear you talk about the opportunities it's bringing in terms of sort of it saves time, it's opening up an entirely different competitive landscape, which you rightly mentioned. It's not people competing anymore, it's the sort of the generation, the AI that's competing. But also actually the really interesting point you made about, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're also a business owner and you have a responsibility to your workforce and to ensuring that those opportunities and those channels for people to upskill or develop skill or access jobs, if they don't come from sort of typical career backgrounds or have sort of qualifications, if AI takes those opportunities away from them, then you're losing those pathways for people to enter the workforce. So it's all the different considerations there, and it is really helpful to hear you kind of talk about those, and how you're not sure what the future could look like in them, but you're very much watching the conversation, as it were.
Yes, we are indeed. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Fantastic. I guess kind of sort of coming to the end of the discussion and some of the final things that we sort of it would be interesting to kind of hear more about. What surprises you about being an entrepreneur? Are there things that even now you're like, how did that happen? Or what's this talking about? What surprises you? Or does nothing surprise you anymore?
Well, I mean, I guess if you asked me 20 years ago if I could see myself, working on HR or software, I don't think I would have answered positively. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's not really something that I had expected to do. But I guess that's the point of having an open mind, which one would need as an entrepreneur. So and having an open mind would possibly lead to going down unexpected rabbit holes. Yeah, so that's I guess the biggest surprise that yeah, that I have. Yeah, and I guess there might be more surprises down the road. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, that kind of the importance of being open-minded, but you mentioned again unexpected rabbit holes, and I'm guessing a lot about being an entrepreneur can be unexpected at times.
Yes, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, the saying, the best laid plans, right? So I think, uh, and that's really very true as an entrepreneur, because the team size is very small as when you first start out. So you know, you might have me and my co-founder, we hire, you know, a couple of guys, team, you know, because the team is small, people might decide that they have greener pastures elsewhere and leave. So you might come to work the next day and then say that, hey, I've just lost, you know, the person that's doing this or that, and so you would have to react to that and you know, work through a solution. So that's something that we have been doing, and I think that helps me to think about, you know, the work that we're doing, the space that we're in, to have a flexible workforce. This is very much part of what we're trying to deal with and solve, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another sort of element of kind of being an entrepreneur, aside to just having the idea and developing the product, there's everything else that comes with it as well. I guess then, to kind of draw us to a bit of not quite a conclusion, but as near as we might get, we were sort of talking a little bit before about, you know, the scholars on the call, you know, coming to the end of their masters, or some people are kind of still kind of ongoing with their PhDs, and that in terms of the sort of subjects represented, you know, we've got scholars from plant sciences background, international development, business administration, chemistry. There are so many different entrepreneurial journeys just represented across those subject areas. And you yourself come from a sort of an electronics and electrical engineering background. What kind of advice, I guess, do you wish you'd had back when you just completed your PhD? What would you say to somebody who perhaps has a hunch that they've yet to validate? What do they do next? And what would your advice be to kind of help them, you know, over the next kind of few years, I guess, really develop that into something?
Yeah. Okay. I guess, can I say don't do it? Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and it's often lonely, and it's lots of risk involved. So I think I mean, I just want to put it out there that you're more likely to fail than not, and really this might lead you to question what you know about life. You can really forget about work-life balance, I guess, if you're kind of like trying to do this. But no, if you're still if you still truly believe that there's a better way that things can be done, if you have an idea that's worth pursuing, and I mean, I think I would like to wish you all the best. I mean, please give it the best shot that you have. I mean, what I found very helpful was to cross-pollinate what I've learned in school, in my degree, with conversations that I had with other professionals in other professions, and try to see what can I bring to the table with what I know, the problems that they are sharing, and I think that's probably a good place to start if you believe that you have a solution, and you're looking at what's the best way to demonstrate that solution.
Thank you so much. And I think everyone on the call really appreciate your honesty about, this is a big step. It's not something to kind of take lightly, and that it can be very consuming, it can be overwhelming. And you've mentioned that, there are times that it can be lonely, but if you truly believe you have a different way to do something, then the benefits of pursuing that could be incredible. You've also mentioned as well the importance of kind of cross-pollinating things as well. And I think that's a really important point. And we're going to go into a breakout session at the end of the webinar for our attendees. And that is a great way to cross-pollinate. That is the beginning of kind of these conversations and sharing ideas and things like that as well. I guess one last question just to kind of come onto the back of that, but you've mentioned a lot around kind of the skills that you need, and I guess some of the softer elements like perseverance and just sort of really keeping true to what your goals are. What for you have been some of the best ways to sort of learn or hone those skills?
Well, I guess it's really picking yourself up and trying again. I think there's often moments of reflection, what has gone right and wrong. We do that now in a systematic way. So we adopt as a team an agile approach to working. So every week we will start the week with this is what we're going to be doing, and then at the end of the week we do a review and say these are things that has worked well, and these are things that could have been done better. And I think this is not just in terms of technical areas or business areas, but in terms of like how do we relate to one another, how do we share or help our teammates to grow or to be aware of certain things. So I've had to learn as well to deal with my colleagues, to give feedback in a better way, and so I think it's really getting out there and not be afraid to admit to making mistakes, saying sorry, and then saying that let's look at the big picture, and this is where we want to get to. We fail and we'll try again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, again, more sort of important advice there. And we're never not learning, and we can always sort of learn from our mistakes, and we just have to be brave enough to sort of look at them and reflect on them and kind of work out what to do next from that as well. That brings us to the end of the sort of formal discussion and the sort of questions that we're prepared to kind of talk through your journey, but also get some of this advice and your experiences for everyone to learn from. We are now in the question and answer. So I would just encourage our attendees, if you do have a question, now is your opportunity to drop it into the chat box so that we can put it to Calvin. Someone has actually privately messaged me a question, which is also absolutely fine if you don't want to put it in the public chat box. And it's about support systems. And I think you've already mentioned kind of the loneliness potentially of being an entrepreneur, but that it can be quite overwhelming. And I guess thinking back to when you were perhaps first starting out, what were your support systems? Was it people, or were there sort of other organizations or groups or networks that you were part of? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And actually, I do have to acknowledge that yeah, having a support system was really important for me. We I, informally, I have a group of schoolmates that we catch up, and then we actually discuss business ideas. What can we do, and what how can we implement this? They have that group amongst them have gone on to start their own businesses in very different things. But also in that group that I have people who have become joint investment funds as so they understand the finance parts of things. So we and also I have groups of friends who have become lawyers, and so having that network to kind of like get informal advice on things, as well as to calibrate and to say, hey, we should share openly about where we are at, and also some of the failures that and challenges that we're going through, and hearing from friends that, hey, this is part of their journey too, actually has been very helpful, and we then are able to support one another in that way. Yeah. I think one of the things that we've done was to organize, for instance, as an Imperial alumnus, I started a group which invited other fellow Imperial entrepreneurs to join that group in Singapore, and we would meet up once every 2 months to have a beer, and just talk about what services we offer, how can we help one another to grow our businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that definitely answers the question about what are your support systems, who's in them, and again, kind of really leveraging those networks, but also that cross-pollination as well. We're now getting a flood of questions through. It just takes one person to ask a question, they all come through. So thank you to all of our attendees who are now dropping questions into the chat box. Please continue to do so. So we have a question that's sort of in two parts. How can one leverage their UK experience to enhance their entrepreneurship journey? So, for example, how could you turn your academic qualification into a business? And I think you've touched on that a little bit, but I don't know if there's any sort of further follow-up you want to provide on that.
Okay. Yeah. Certainly. I think, well, I've definitely benefited a lot about from my education in the UK, as well as that sponsorship from Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. So that's been a big plus. But I think informally, the one takeaway that I got from being in the UK was during my doctoral studies at Imperial, we would have donuts every Friday afternoon. So where everybody in the group, research group, would come together. We would take turns to buy donuts or any other snack, and then we would all talk about our research areas and share how we would deal with things. And oftentimes those conversations would then overflow to the pub over definitely more than one pint. And so that's something that that culture I've really appreciated and brought back to Singapore with the team, and that's something that we do. I find that it's slightly different in Singapore for where culturally this does not happen as often or as easily, and so that's something that I really appreciate being in the UK and yeah, being part of my culture now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really interesting to learn about. We've got two more questions that have come in as well. So one of our scholars is asking, what main considerations should one have when moving from employment or academia to entrepreneurship? It's a big jump. What do you need to think about?
Yeah, I think, with employment, the traditional way to think about this is that this is a more secure. This is it's an extension from school basically. Where if you clear your exams, you progress to the next year. And similarly in employment, you would look at your KPIs and your key performance indicators, your objectives and goals, and if you meet them, if you exceed them, you get promoted, and then you grow either within the company or you move to the next company, so that's a clear pathway. I think with entrepreneurship, I think you are intentionally leaving that aside and saying, I'm going to chart my own path, and I'm going to be looking at setting my own objectives. It also means that you probably have to be able to own a lot more of what it takes to succeed than if you working in a company as an employee, because you would have your job scope, and that's your area of concern. But with an entrepreneur, basically, it's definitely a lot more than your job scope. You would need to, you alone are responsible for turning those ideas into successful implementations and realities.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, really important points around kind of the level of responsibility that you take on as an entrepreneur. And you've mentioned kind of sort of employment feels like an extension of school. You have that structure, you have your job description, you've got chains of management and other people that you work with, and you have to really reset the expectations and the boundaries and to some extent the pressures when you're an entrepreneur and you're taking on all of that by yourself and you're totally responsible. So I hope that answers our scholar question. I think the final question that we'll do before we wrap up, so just to say thank you to everyone that has dropped in a question. Could you please guide a bit more on how to create an economical value of your research? And does that require sort of funding for sort of setting up a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as part of being an entrepreneur, you need to be thinking strategically about your objectives and your goals. And I think as part of strategy, you need to be thinking about the resources that you have and how do you then direct those resources to maximize the chance of success. And that would be the money you have in the bank, your time, your team's time, and if you start a company, you would have shares or equity, and you need to be thinking about how am I going to be spreading that out, in terms of selling that to investors, in terms of keeping that for the team, in terms of retaining that for yourself. What would that look like? And so for many people, that solution might be to actually grow your capabilities first. That would be your bank of ability and experiences. Going to a job and working in a company. And also then if that pays pretty well, you would be able to finance your own initial runway. So you would give yourself 6 months to a year to explore different ideas basically. And I think that's probably a great way to start. I was very fortunate. I think in terms of my PhD studies to actually receive funding from the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. And I, on the back of that, actually, I had additional grant money from the Singapore government, which meant that I did not need any industrial sponsors to determine the area of research that I got into. So I was pretty free to to research on things that actually interested me. I mean, I think that that's a blessing, but also if I had to be working on an industrial research project, I would think that I would be interested to know if my ideas could be commercialized, if that's something that where I could partake in the ownership of the IP. I think those conversations need to be had with obviously the university, as well as if they're industrial sponsors, then you would need to have those conversations with them as well. I think that's if you're looking down that path, it's really important to document that in writing, and not leave any of that ambiguous, yeah, so that you're able to take it to where you hope it will go to.
Thank you so much. Some really great points and considerations that you've shared there. And I hope, again, that answers the question from the scholar, but it's also raised kind of other things for people to think about around kind of their research and sort of IP and conversations that they might want to have with their institutions if they do have an idea and it is based in the research that they're currently doing. And you're right to say, kind of have those conversations in that open space now, and kind of see where it goes as well. That is the end of the questions that we've had in from the chat box. So just thank you again to everybody. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. And I just want to say thank you so much to our speaker, to Dr. Calvin Sim, for joining us today and sharing so much about kind of the personal side of your journey as an entrepreneur, but also some of the practical tips and things that you would advise and what you've learned on that journey as well. I've definitely learned a lot more from everything that you've shared today about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and that ideas and inspiration can come from anywhere, but the amount of things that are on your to-do list and that are on your must remember to kind of think about and consider list are sort of all consuming. But it's great that you've kind of shared that and that everyone on the call is able to sort of benefit from your experience and your expertise as well. Before we kind of sort of finalize the recording, is there anything from you, any final words from you?
Yeah, no, thank you, Kirsty. No, I really enjoyed that conversation. I thought your questions were very thought-provoking and insightful. So thank you very much for those questions and the opportunity to be able to share in this space about my journey. Yeah, it was definitely a pleasure for me.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to all of the scholars that submitted questions as well. I think they brought another element to the discussion and really pulled out some new points as well. So thanks to everyone for the webinar today.